Deep breath. And their third and final speaker for this year's Hour of Response, Joe Blumenfeld.
This isn't the tent. No, my glasses.
There we go.
We're good?
Now we're good.
Can you hear me? Thanks. I spent a long time being angry at Judaism. There were concrete areas where organized Judaism failed me. I was taught, for example, that Israel was a land without a people for a people without a land. Imagine how foolish I felt when I argued that position in a college class on Middle East history. There were other areas. Like most children that were raised in violence, I latched onto anything that seemed stable or anything that seemed safe. I was in a religious and Hebrew school from 2nd to 10th grade, after school and on weekends. And no one noticed the signs of abuse that must have been visible. We looked like the perfect family, and people told me how lucky I was. When your parents' names are etched on the walls of the temple's new building, no one, not the rabbis, the teachers, the youth leaders, no one paid much attention to the broken boy that was sent to 6 different schools in those 8 years. No one was responsible for that child's safety. I sure didn't feel lucky. I even had a secret friend, God. But that friend didn't protect me either. And at some point I dropped that friend, just like so many others over the years. But things are very different now. Judaism, my community, this congregation, has not only not failed me, it has sustained me and breathed new life into me. Like the rabbi said during the Rosh Hashanah services and earlier today, this country needs this congregation. We need this temple. I need this temple. Temple Beth Elohim has come through for me in ways I didn't think possible. I'll explain. On May 31st, I spoke publicly for the very first time about my journey to understand my childhood trauma and control its impact. I posted the video of that talk to YouTube, and when I last checked, the view count had surpassed an astonishing 11,000. May 31st is just over 4 months ago. My talk lasted for about 12 minutes, and when I finished, there was this complete moment of silence, and my first thought was, oh God, what did I do? And then, almost in unison, the 400 people in attendance rose to their feet and gave me a standing ovation in temple, and I was reduced to tears. The impact was immediate. Emails, texts, Facebook messages flooded in over the next days and weeks. Words like bravery and hero and courage came up over and over again. People from my past and my present reached out to tell me their stories, finding the strength that they needed to speak their truths. As at that Shabbat service, I will spare you the details, especially on an empty stomach. This is not the time or place to share things that will make your stomach turn or your skin crawl or your blood boil. Time stops. When a child is sexually assaulted, the trauma is so severe that part of that child's brain ceases to develop. That child, without even understanding the abuse taking place, is literally frozen in time, where she or he will psychologically relive that assault over and over again for the rest of their lives. The result is that that victimized child living within a grown adult will respond to the world as if she or he is under attack. Fight, flight, or freeze. Often without knowing it, this adult responds to emotional triggers with a single reptilian purpose: survival. The trauma that broke that child decades ago plays out over and over for a lifetime. Everything is seen through that singular lens of survival. There is no rest. It's battle stations all the time. It's exhausting and it's corrosive. It destroys you day by day and hour by hour. The impact of that trauma is hauntingly lifelong, devastating, destructive, and then quite often passed on to your children and your grandchildren. For me, this part of my journey began 7 years ago when I suffered a near-death cardiac incident that resulted in me flatlining, undergoing emergency open heart surgery, a coma, and months of intensive recovery and medical care, and a very long recovery. Many of you know this story. This congregation played a heroic role in holding my family together. Indeed, this community provided what our prayer books call the shelter from that storm. And that's when the memories first started to surface. Over the next months and years, long repressed glimpses from the past bubbled up. The memories that started as a trickle surged into a flood, completely overwhelming me, and it hit me like a sledgehammer. I remember being sexually assaulted as a child. In an instant, my lifetime was erased. The foundation of security and family and everything that kept me going for decades was swiftly knocked out from under me, leaving me devastated, unsure if what I remembered was right or wrong. I was not who I thought I was, and I was in crisis. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, I didn't see people, I didn't leave my house for days or weeks at a time. The darkness was so consuming that it's difficult to explain now, but it was very clear then. I was broken, shattered. At the lowest point in my life, Michelle and I turned to the mental health system in Massachusetts, utterly lost, desperate, and very much afraid. I needed help, and I needed it now. And we learned the reality that when a man like me, affected by the childhood trauma I remembered is in crisis, there is no help to be found. No option, no crisis, no experts, no programs. In Massachusetts, the state that first broke the silence around clergy sex abuse 15 years ago, where there are thousands of men living that were savagely abused as boys, there are virtually no resources for those men. When I was overwhelmed with shame, fear, and rage, the absence of help reinforced my feelings of worthlessness. Traumatized by recovered childhood memories, my brain and my body shut down, sending me into a free fall. I spiraled into a pit of depression so deep and so dark that it defies description. I was hopeless and helpless, stuck in a life that didn't seem worth living. Like many people in need of mental health support, I had to leave Massachusetts. We found an intensive trauma support program in Arizona where I was diagnosed with PTSD, and I began the long road back to recovery. Part of that road included a promise. No man should feel worthless because he can't find the help he needs. I didn't realize it at the time, but my talk at TBE in late May marked a true turning and empowering point in my recovery. It fueled me. Those 12 minutes changed my life. Amazingly, those 12 minutes have begun to change the lives of other men, also suffering from childhood trauma. At last count, 32 men and 2 women have come to me and shared their stories of sexual assault, some for the first time in their lives. Because I could safely tell my story here at TBE, these people are finding the strength to share their stories, swapping strength for salvation and starting the long journey to heal. Breaking the silence mattered, and breaking the silence is changing the story. 4 months ago, in this room, I said that in Boston, there was not a single male childhood sexual assault specialist, support group, or resource for straight men. Not one. Many people couldn't believe that that was true, and it became something that I was challenged on frequently. But no one ever presented me with any evidence or something concrete to counter it. There was nothing here. I can't say that today. Since my talk in May and following meetings to draw attention to this issue and present a vision that I crafted, McLean Hospital moved very quickly to respond. McLean has launched an outpatient program for men with a history of childhood sexual assault. Importantly, McLean is now fielding educational programming focused on men with a history of sexual assault for the 2019-2020 academic year. That's this year. Training the professionals that men like me need but are in desperately short supply. Most importantly, McLean has begun the process of creating something that doesn't exist anywhere else. A model program focusing on the sexual abuse of boys, the impact it causes, and the resource needed for those boys and men to heal. A breakthrough resource like this should already exist, especially in Massachusetts. But McLean is the trailblazer, filling that gap. It is impossible to overstate the importance of this. McLean is the top-ranked mental health hospital in the country for 17 consecutive years. It is a Harvard teaching hospital with global reach. McLean will leverage the expertise and leadership that it has in a host of areas to inform and impact this area. And there is no better place to create a first like this. The goal is to bring together research, clinical support, public education, advocacy, and professional education to fill the gaping hole that currently exists. Michelle and I are actively working with the leadership team at McLean to bring this holistic vision to life. A number of people have questioned just how prevalent the assault of boys really is. Unfortunately, news reports give you a steady drumbeat of abuse. 1 in 6 boys will experience sexual assault before turning 18. 1 in 16 young men in college will be sexually assaulted before graduation. That means that here in Boston, 4,000 young men in this year's freshman class, that's my daughter's freshman class, 4,000 will be victims of sexual assault sometime in the next 4 years. There are more than 12,000 Boy Scout victims, with assault reports going back to the 40s. In the military, the Pentagon's own report estimates that 10,000 male service members are sexually assaulted every year. Some reports put the number of sexual assault cases in the Catholic Church at more than 100,000 in the US alone. This plague reaches our community as well. At a Jewish preschool in DC, a teacher has been accused of sexually assaulting 4-year-old children while the synagogue ignored repeated warnings of abuse. Yeshiva University is facing far-reaching legal actions claiming that the school ignored the sexual abuse of hundreds of boys over decades. Survivors for Justice, an organization that advocates for victims of abuse in Orthodox communities, reports that the rate of abuse for boys in the Hasidic community could reach a stunning 50%, 50%. Without any form of sex ed, many of these boys don't even recognize that they're being sexually abused. Considered untrustworthy before their bar mitzvah, any claim is dismissed. They have nowhere to turn, they can't change schools, they're threatened with community shunning, their rabbinate controls their ability to marry. No community is untouched by this horror. To put it in context, there are likely as many American men who have experienced childhood sexual assault as there are men who develop prostate cancer. But while one rightfully sparks national fundraising efforts and awareness campaigns, the other lurks silently in the shadows, shrouded by shame. Abuse happens in secrecy. Remaining silent and keeping that secret compounds the trauma. That secret destroys its victim every day. I no longer keep that secret. I no longer internalize that shame. I control my trauma and it no longer controls me. Some people close to me told me that they feared my public disclosure would be a mistake. But the momentous progress in 4 short months proves it wasn't a mistake. It was a mitzvah. And no one thinks it was a mistake anymore. We need this congregation because my disclosure here carried no stigma. In fact, it produced the opposite of a stigma. It gave me strength and purpose. But that lack of stigma also carries an important responsibility. I now have an obligation to bring help to those suffering in silence or those living lives steeped in stigma. Too many men suffer in silence, and the most important thing I could say to them is this: you are not alone. You are not the only one. Speak your truth, break the silence. There will be moments of fear and true terror, but they will be replaced with moments of light and love and healing. I promise. When the abuse happened, I became a victim, and now I have become a survivor. The difference between victim and survivor comes down to a single word: hope. Hope that tomorrow will be better than today. Hope that my work with McLean Hospital will make life livable for other male survivors. Hope that my voice will help light that darkness. Something remarkable can happen when life crashes in and everything seems lost. The people that love you come and rescue you. They cushion, they sometimes absorb that fall, taking the pain so you don't crash, allowing you to recover and soar. My daughters showed me that light, giving me purpose. One told me and Michelle how much it meant that when everything was falling apart, we kept our marriage and family together. The other has said that while it's hard to see Daddy break down and fall apart, she's also seen Daddy heal, rise back up, and come back together to help others. With love, patience, and help from family and friends and this community, and strength and determination I didn't know and I wasn't always sure that I could muster, I have clawed my way out of that darkness. I see a path I couldn't see before, and I see hope where none existed. I see a light I feared had been lost. McLean is the first place I'm working with to right this wrong, to help other male survivors, but it won't be the last. When I was in Scottsdale for the psychological help I couldn't find in Boston, I listened over and over to Olam Chesed sung by a dear friend, literally hundreds of times. Finding those words included in that shofar service that Noah arranged illuminated new areas of thinking and prayer for me. I will build this world from love, and you can build this world from love. And if we build this world from love, then God will build this world from love. Here at TBE, we build from love. You listening to me is an act of love. The groundbreaking work the McLean Hospital is undertaking builds from that love. The thousands of men that yesterday had nowhere to turn can now find help today, and tomorrow will have the help they need because of this congregation's love and commitment to building a better world. As we prayed, we believe that we have the power to make tomorrow different from today. Each of us has the power to be that catalyst. And as a community, there is nothing we cannot achieve. I didn't see my public disclosure as courageous or brave. It was simply necessary. It is my truth. Speaking that truth breathes new life into me. And so on this day of atonement in the year 5780, I'm going to take another step on my Jewish journey. And I'm going to bring the light of forgiveness to the person that needs it the most, me. With the power of truth and redemptive love that has accompanied my Jewish journey, I'm going to forgive that little boy that didn't say no, that didn't cry, or didn't call for help when he was raped. That little boy didn't make a sound. I understand now that that little boy, just like Moses in the basket, was simply too scared to cry out. But he's not scared anymore. There's so much to accomplish, so much grace to bring to so many in pain, so much love to help them heal. There are so many dark places in this world that need the light that we as a community can bring. And as we pray during these high holy days, to create that better world, there's no time to waste. Shana Tova.